Hey there, my name is Owen, and today I'll be walking you through how to install the new Trails by GrimmSpeed fender flares for the second generation Subaru Crosstrek. We will be demonstrating this install with the Crosstrek lifted in the air, but keep in mind that this install is certainly possible with the car on the ground as well. Take a moment to pause and look over this list to make sure that you have all of the tools necessary to get the job done right. Start by laying out all the pieces included in your hardware kit and sort the clips by size. We are going to be starting with one of the front flares. Find the two pieces with the matching front left or front right labels inside and bolt them together using two of the included spring nuts and screws. A stubby screwdriver makes this easier. Before you fully tighten the fasteners, ensure that the outside edges of the flares are lined up perfectly. Once you have the two halves securely fastened together, start applying the included weather stripping for the outside edges of the flare by peeling back one end of the red backing and slowly working your way from one end of the flare to the other. Take your time and make sure that the strip is perfectly aligned with the edge of the plastic. When you come to the seam where the two halves of the flare meet, use a sharp blade to cut a small U-shaped notch around the seam so the trim will lay flat on the outer edge. When you reach the end of the flare, use your blade to cut the trim flush and also make sure to cut the red backing along with it to prevent any dust from collecting on the adhesive. Moving on to the car, start by popping loose the three clips behind the front wheel and pulling the inner fender liner up slightly. Please note, if your Crosstrek is equipped with the factory mud flaps, use a 10mm wrench to remove the three bolts securing the flap to the inner fender well, and then use a flathead screwdriver or pry tool to release the clip underneath the rocker. Set the mud flap aside. Slide one of the included sheet metal clips over the middle tab and tuck the fender liner back into place behind the lip of the fender. Using a screwdriver, pop out the clip where the fender meets the front bumper. Pull back the bumper and install one of the included narrow U-clips over the tab. Then go ahead and pop the bumper back into place. Next, hold the Trails by GrimmSpeed flare in its place, ensuring that the ends line up with the front lip and the side skirt. Use a paint pen or wax pencil to mark the hole locations on the inside of the factory flare. This is a lot easier if you have a friend to hold the flare for you while you mark the holes. Line up one of the plastic U-clips with each of the holes you marked and use a screwdriver or other sharp object to mark the exact location you will need to drill into the factory flare. Drill out each of the holes you marked using a 5/16 inch or 8mm drill bit. You can now permanently install one of the plastic U-clips over each of the holes. Hold your new Trails by GrimmSpeed flare securely in place and loosely install one of the included screws into each of the holes along the flare. Now that you have all of the screws in place, go back and fully tighten them all, making sure that the flare is pushed into place so the rubber trim seals against the fender. Once all of the screws are tight, install one of the included push clips into the lowest hole securing the flare to the front bumper. Moving on to the rear flare, start by bolting together the two matching halves of the flare using spring clips and screws. Remember to ensure that the visible faces line up perfectly. Follow this by lining the outer edges of the flare in the rubber weather seal fully from one corner of the flare to the other. You will also want to install the weather stripping on the rounded outer edge of the door piece as well. Moving back to the car, use a plastic trim tool to pry the front portion of the factory flare off of the quarter panel. Once you have it started, you can use your fingers to pop the clips and pull away the adhesive. Be sure to clean up any adhesive residue left behind from the factory flare. Next, wipe down this freshly exposed portion of the quarter panel along with the rear edge of the door using one of the larger included alcohol wipes. Grab the appropriate plastic flare mounting bracket and install 3 of the plastic U-clips over the holes along the lip. Peel back a couple inches of the red backing from each of the adhesive strips on the back of the bracket and fold them over the edges. Line the bracket up with the holes in the quarter panel and slowly peel off the remaining red backing material. Once all of the adhesive is exposed, press on the bracket to make sure it is firmly adhered to the quarter panel. Using a screwdriver, pop out the uppermost clip on the rear portion of the factory flare. Pull back the flare and install one of the narrow U-clips onto the tab. You will also want to install 2 of the plastic U-clips over the bottommost holes in the rear of the wheel arch. Align the Trails by GrimmSpeed flare over the rear wheels, starting by inserting the front corner into the pocket in the rocker panel. You can then align the rear of the flare with the bottom of the bumper. Loosely install 2 screws through the flare and into the clips we installed a moment ago at the back of the wheel arch. Follow them up by installing screws into the other 4 holes along the top and front of the arch. Press the flare tight against the quarter panel so the rubber strip seals against the paint and tighten all of the screws fully. Grab the final piece to attach to the rear door and peel back 2 to 3 inches of the red backing material from each of the 3 strips. Fold the loose bits over the edge so they can be accessed from the sides. Keep track of which one is the middle strip, as this needs to be the first strip pulled. Use the supplied door spacer tools to align the door piece to the rear flare. Make sure there is a uniform gap all along the seam. Once the door piece is properly aligned, carefully pull out the red backing material, starting with the middle strip. Press along the piece as you go to secure it in place without losing the body line with the flare. After the 2 upper strips have been removed, open the door and pull out the 3rd and final strip. We recommend using 2 to 3 spring clamps to pinch the door and flare extension together for 5 to 10 minutes to ensure the adhesive grabs properly. The final step is to wipe down the recessed areas in each flare using one of the included alcohol wipes. Once they are clean, you can stick on one of the included Trails by GrimmSpeed bubble stickers to each flare. The stickers are different right to left, but can be used on either the front or rear flares. And just like that, you're done! We recommend letting your Crosstrek sit for a day in a warm area to let the adhesive set up, but then you're good to hit the trails. If you have any questions about the install, feel free to reach out to our team of Subaru experts at support@grimmspeed.com.